Hello, and welcome to the Drywall Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Harmon. I've been in and around the drywall industry for more than 20 years. I've worked in the union, finished piece rate, and worked hourly with many different companies and people spanning the West Coast and beyond. The Drywall Podcast will be exploring the world of drywall and interviewing the professionals that make it happen. We are extremely excited to have industry legend with us today, Buck Buchanan. Did you ever wonder where drywall came from? Buck is an industry expert dating all the way back to the 1970s. He's written 3 books, including his latest, Behind the Walls, which tracks the history of the EIFS industry and how that product came to be.
All the houses that are built, particularly in your area and my area, is interior plaster.
Yep.
Big deal. And then drywall came in 69 or in the late 60s or late 50s rather, and really started taking the market on and really replacing plaster. So a lot of the plastering contractors evolved into being drywall contractors.
Oh, I like this. We also discuss how a meager product like drywall was able to topple the plaster giants of the day and shape an industry into what it is. We talk about his outward focused projects and dynamics of writing books, and he also gives me a couple insights into how I can market Fresco Harmony. This podcast is brought to you by Fresco Harmony. Fresco Harmony is the world's first color joint compound system to create beautiful walls, whether you're going over existing painted texture or level 3 finished drywall.
This is my new least favorite place I've ever been. I spent a lot of time here, but trust me, it doesn't get any better.
We'll be discussing all things drywall. This concept began with the Facebook groups picking unique topics, discussing application techniques, and the characters and the comedy that ensued. Let's get into it. Hello, sir.
Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Welcome to the Drywall Podcast / local cast. You fish at all?
Yeah, I actually a little bit. I got a grandson that loves to go fishing, so I take him when we have time. So
I read you have a few grandchildren, correct?
Yeah, I got 5 of them.
Oh my gosh, you must be in heaven.
Yeah, it's nice. They range anywhere from 14 to actually 15 to 2. So
okay.
It's a good range, and they keep you going. So
yeah, they say the only thing better than having children is having grandchildren. Is that true?
Yes, because you can give them back.
That's right. That's a standard response.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Cool.
Right.
Buck Buchanan, prolific. Could we say prolific with 3 books?
I wouldn't call that, but
I wouldn't call it prolific.
You run the show here.
I would say pretty damn good, though. I can't imagine. I've often waxed poetic about writing 1 book, which seems like a lofty ambition, but to write 3 is a big deal to me. Maybe it is to you too. I don't know. It seems like a lot of work just to write 1.
Well, it's kind of like this. It's kind of like, once you do 1, then you kind of know how to do 1, and then you can do 2 and go from there. So
right. So the first one probably took you a while. Yeah.
Yeah, it did. Because you kind of had to figure it out. So when you write a book, and I'm one of these guys, I was a business guy. So I got a degree in business administration. And if you have all of my teachers through my educational career, who was the least likely person to ever write a book, that'd be me. So I was no English scholar by any stretch of the imagination. But once you start writing, you kind of figure it out on your own, and then it makes sense. So that's kind of, I said, I'm going to write this book, and I can tell you the story of how I got into this if you want to know it.
We got like an hour.
Yeah.
I am interested in I'm interested in goals and achieving goals. Now, what you said there piqued my interest. You said, I'm going to write this book. You didn't say, I'm thinking about writing a book. You didn't say, wouldn't it be nice if I wrote a book? You said, I'm going to write a book. And I think that when we have goals, that is a really paramount aspect to achieving. Is the action behind the goal is the declaration or the attitude of, this is going to happen.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And that probably was something that had to happen with you when you decided to write the book, First and 30, correct?
Yeah. What may be interesting for you and your listeners is, because you mentioned a minute ago about setting goals, and you got to set the goals to achieve things. And I'm a big believer in that as well. And so how I got to write the book is kind of an interesting story.
Yeah.
We were at our 40th high school reunion, and everybody's standing around at you would do a reunion, and they're talking and they're telling stories and they're going on. And somebody says, somebody ought to write a book. And so I'd had several adult beverages by that time, and I
sure.
write the book. So anyway, fast forward a couple years later. So I'm giving a sales presentation in Las Vegas to a bunch of sales guys. And I get up and give my spiel about sales and sales management and how to manage sales teams and blah, blah, blah. And then I sit back down at my desk, and this lady sits down next to me. And she's a consultant. And she says, you can make a living doing that. I said, what are you talking about? She says, the way you talk to people, I mean, you can communicate, you got eye contact, you got sense of humor, you got awareness of the audience, but you need to write a book. I said, what the hell do I need to write a book for? Well, that gives you credibility. So you talk about sales and sales management, and then you can become a world-renowned speaker.
Sure.
I mean, this kind of blew me away. So we talked a little bit further. As we talked, I said, I tell you what, I'm going to write that sales and sales management book, another book first. And so that's how I got into writing to begin with.
Before you got into the second book, I mean, there's got to be a ton that you learned.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. You learn as you go. So when I did the first one, I certainly learned a great deal. And when I got the second one, I used what I learned there for that. And then by the time I got to the third one, I continued to do it. And I think you continue to learn as you go. The timeline, I started this in the summer of 2014. And that's when I started doing some research and I started interviewing people.
That's recent.
Yeah, I finished the manuscript by the end of the year. And so now I got a manuscript. And then I say, well, what am I going to do now? I'm going like, duh, now what would I do? So I had the opportunity of a buddy of mine I went to high school with. His wife is a New York publishing house author.
Okay.
And she's published about, at that time, probably 8 or 9 books. So I called her up and I said, Gretchen, what do I do now? So we talked about it, and she told me, she says, well, you need to call this guy that lives out in Reno, Nevada. He's an editor. So I called this guy in Reno, Nevada, and I said, hey, I'm a guy that wrote a book and never wrote a book before.
Yeah.
Edit it for me.
Love it. What's his name? What's his name? Let's give him a shout out.
So Deke Castleman is the guy.
Castleman.
He now lives, I think he's in Flagstaff now, Arizona. So that's where he is now. But he was a career editor and writer. He worked in New York. So he'd been around a while. So anyway, Deke said, well, send me your manuscript and I'll take a look at it. So I sent him the manuscript. He calls me back a couple of days later and says, I looked it over. I'll do the deal for you. So anyway, it went from there. So he was a good guy to work with. It was a fun guy to work with. And so I used him for that book, and then I used him for the last 2 books as well.
Sure. So when I write my first book, Deke, I'm gonna send it to you. Check it out.
Okay. Yeah, sure. No problem.
Color Joint Compound 101.
Yeah, that's right.
How did you get into this industry? Would be my next, from a business degree to how you got into this industry. Where did that happen?
Well, that's another interesting story, is most people have interesting stories.
Sure.
When I graduated from college, I graduated, then it dawned on me that I got to have a job. Greyhound was doing at the time, Greyhound was trying to build up their management team by hiring kids just out of college.
Smart.
And so anyway, I was there 4 years. In 4 years, I had 3 promotions. So I was a rising star, but I realized that I wasn't making any real money to speak of, because Greyhound's mentality was basically it's union based, and you got to be there long enough, and every year you're there, you get a little bit more, not necessarily how you go up the ladder. So anyway, I was looking for a job. So I run into this guy, and he says, "Man, we got this stuff, and it's world changing material. It's something that came out of Germany. It's going to revolutionize construction."
Who was that?
His name was Jack Brennan.
Okay.
So he's in the book.
Okay.
So anyway, he says, "Well, you call this guy here." This guy, it was his regional manager, said he was looking for somebody in Atlanta. Anyway, long story short, they hired him.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything.
But now wait, did they hire you for sales?
They hired me for sales. I was a guy working for Stowe at the time. Stowe was a German company that had just come. They came over to the States in 1979, set up shop in Rutland, Vermont, which is in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, so I was hired as a sales guy. And from that point on, I had basically had to learn the business on my own, because there weren't any training tools, there weren't any sales manuals, there wasn't anything like that. So that is how I got into the business, just because I knew a guy that they happened to be looking for somebody, and I went to work for him. And so I got out and I went to work for him in October of 2000, October 1980. 1980, I went to work for him as a sales rep.
Okay.
A year later, I was a national sales manager.
Wow. And that's how you knew all these people. That's how you got to know all these people in the industry.
Yeah, because what happened was, I worked for one company, but we soon found out that the industry was evolving. There were other companies that were coming around. Drivit had started the business in the U.S., and from that, other companies had gotten into business because they saw what Drivit was doing, which had become very successful doing it in the first 10 years since they introduced the product in 1969.
Okay.
So companies were coming in, and one of the things that you have when you have fledgling industries is you don't have it's kind of like a Wild West. Everybody's making claims and making statements and making accusations and so about what your product will do and what the other guy's product won't do, and your stuff's good and their stuff's bad, and you get into all this. Well, that filters into the architects, into the builders and the contractors, and they say, "Listen, I don't want to be in the middle of all that." So these companies started getting together and say, "Man, we better put some standards together." And that's kind of how I got to know all these people, because the industry began to bond, and association was formed. And from that point on, we worked as individual companies, but then we also had an industry that was really the driving force to really put EIFS on the map right after Drivit had gotten things started.
I like that. They went from talking trash to connecting. Yeah. They realized that, if we connect, then we can sell more product.
Yeah.
Smart. And so would you say that was the formulation of the AWCI?
Well, no, AWCI had been around a long time.
Okay.
And they had catered to obviously the wall and ceiling industry. So that's drywall. But plaster was a big part of AWCI's portfolio before drywall came in. So interior plaster back in after World War II, all the houses that are built, particularly in your area and my area, was interior plaster.
Yep.
Big deal. And then drywall came in 69 or in the late 60s or late 50s rather, and really started taking the market on and really replacing plaster. So a lot of the plastering contractors evolved into being drywall contractors.
Because the problem with plaster has always been, the plaster guys will get pissed, but it's expensive and it's hard. That's why they switched to drywall. So I'm sure at this point in the timeline of the history of drywall, plaster was probably here and drywall came out and everybody just started to switch over because it was more affordable. It was faster. The contractors don't care. They just want that house done, right? So tell me a little bit about your experience living through and seeing that shift. That's interesting to me.
Well, when I got in the industry, the shift had really taken place, but there were lots of people that had lived through the shift and had been part of it. So a lot of plastering contractors that we were selling product to had been through this because their daddies had, been in business since World War II, and they had the business, and so they had seen that evolution come.
And you get a lot of those stubborn old guys that are like, this is how we've been doing it for years. And by God, I'm not going to change anything, kind of.
That's right. That's right. I mean, construction is the worst place in the world for that. They don't want to change. So why do we want to change? We've been doing it this way for 100 years. So, getting people to change is a challenge. So, but the drywall, again, if you go back, drywall was invented back in the early 1900s. And it never really materialized until World War II, and it became popular when they were building Quonset huts. Well, they used them during World War II in the Pacific, mainly for housing and hospitals and so forth, and they used drywall on the inside because that was flexible and easy to bend. And
I did not know that. That's cool.
That's kind of how it catapulted that business forward. And then after World War II, there were some people that had seen this product used. They said, you know what, that'll help us in building houses, and we can build them quicker because it takes too long to do the 3-step stucco or 4-step stucco or plaster on the inside rather. And so that's where it kind of boomed. And then from then on, it went forward. So by the time I got in the business, in the EIFS world, we sold to the plastering contractor. That was the guy we were wanting to sell to. Well, again,
because the plaster guys are good with the hock and trowels, right?
Right.
Were they doing the exterior cladding?
Yes, a lot of them did.
Okay.
A lot of them did, and
they were using stucco, right?
Well, Stowe was really just mainly an EIFS company when they came into the U.S.
Okay.
And Drive It was an EIFS company as well. They started it. So you really had stucco. So like where you live, you had 3-coat stucco, which was done on every building, every house, everywhere.
Yeah.
That we sold to the plastering trade, and that's how we kind of got involved with the drywall people, because they used to be plasters. But when the EIFS business came back in, these old line original plasters said, man, this is a way to get back in, get my guys using hawks and trowels again. And we really like that business. EIFS kind of helped rebirth the plastering industry.
Yeah.
Which basically put out of business by drywall business.
Right. That's interesting. So, and it's still kind of like, and no shame against plaster and stuff. I know that people love their plaster. It looks beautiful, like all of that stuff. There's just no denying the complication and expense. That part is challenging.
Well, and today, frankly, there's really nobody that can really do interior plaster like it used to be done.
Now, when you were marketing to they were drywall guys, but they used to be plaster guys. Now you're marketing EIFS to them. They get to bust out the plaster tools again. That was appealing. I guess in that regard, you had to start working with the drywall guys a little bit, but you had minimal knowledge of drywall, correct?
Yeah. But you got to realize that there weren't but about 3 people in the United States knew what EIFS was in the first place. So
crazy.
You had to kind of learn on your own, and the way you learned is by talking to contractors, because they're the ones that really could tell you how things really work. What was the process, and you could show them your materials and say, here's what they do. And they figured it out really quick because they knew how to use the tools. And I think that's the analogy that you go between what EIFS did and almost kind of what you're trying to do now.
Yeah. Well, and I've been told, like, you know what, you need to market to stucco guys. But stucco guys nowadays, they never go inside the house.
That's right.
And the drywall guys use a pan and knife a lot. Up in Canada, they use a hawk and trowel. So that's I'm trying to get these knife and pan guys to use a spreadable. It's a little foreign to them.
Well, the problem that you've got is that the USGs, the Nationals, and these guys have got the world thinking that let's put this stuff up really quick. Let's throw up, the joint compound, and then we're going to paint it. And then,
yes.
Even the level 5 finishes are, they're rare these days. But
yeah,
and you're kind of in between that. Okay, we got the wall up, and we've taken joints, we've sanded a little bit. Now what do we do? And you're somewhere between there and a 5 finish, and then to get contractors to buy into it, that it is really something that's going to save some money, because you're improving the finishing of it, and you got the color in it. So you've eliminated the painting step, and you've lessened the cost of smoothing out the wall from where a level 5 finish is, I would guess.
Yeah, we call it an imperfect smooth, because also I have a theory of level 5 that I don't really like. Aspects about level 5 that I don't like is that it's super time consuming. It creates a lot of dust. And in the end of the day, it's hard to patch. It's still never perfect. You shine a light down a wall, it's a nightmare. And so I come in saying, well, if texture is okay, you either have texture or you have level 5. Why can't you just have kind of a smooth surface in between, where you don't have to sand all day, but it still looks smooth to the homeowner or client? Yeah. That's where Fresco Harmony kind of falls in, and less sanding and better coverage.
I mean, I can tell you this in from the EIFS perspective, because we made acrylic finishes, and we over time, the companies I was with, we tried to get in the interior business, because we said, man, we got the products.
Yeah.
Well, let's sell into it. Well, the problem we had with that was, number one, we didn't know anybody on the inside, because we dealt with people on.
Love it.
Talking about architects, interior designers, builders. So that was one problem that we had. And so that was the people that are specifying the product. And then you got.
So real quick, you were a little farther down the line of selling EIFS, to the point where you were at this point primarily targeting exterior people.
Yes.
And the interior, that's where the division of the exterior and interior probably became more solidified.
It did. But again, we thought it's a tremendous market opportunity, but we weren't selling to the decision maker. And then the contractors we had, although they had been plasters at one time, and now they're drywall finishers, they still weren't ready to pick up the ball and run with it, so to speak.
Right.
So the concept was there, but we never could get the execution right, because there was never enough mass to make the math work, so to speak. And you got to develop some disciples. You got to get guys out there.
Yep.
And when they talk to a builder, or when they talk to a general contractor, and they say, I got something that'll work for you, and they got to say, here's what I'll do that wall for you for, and let me show you what it looks like. You get guys like that, then you're going to be okay and you'll be able to grow your business.
You know, it's funny. That's one of my sales strategies for new adapters. I'm always like, find a builder that you have a good relationship with. I'll send you a free color pack and do a wall in there for free. Do a wall for free. They can pick any color they want after that. And once they see it, let the product sell itself. And so you guys gave it a shot with the acrylic stuff, but you're saying it didn't really work because you couldn't sell it to the decision makers.
Yeah. And then again, the other problem we had too with it was, is it an artistic finish or is performance finish? So the aesthetics, you could kind of get that sold, but then the cost would wipe part of that out because I don't want to spend that much money. And so you would end up, if you were doing an apartment complex, you do the entryway into the leasing office, and that would be it. Doing all the apartments. And so, because again, the math never worked out. We never get the dollars and cents worked out where it made. When you took the cost and the labor cost and added that together, you can never get the math to work out from painted drywall. And that's really what at the end of the day you're competing.
Yeah. I'm competing against painted textured wall. Yeah. And no qualms about it. That's a great finish, and it's durable and it's easy to patch. And you know what though? I want to compete. I want to figure it out. It's very interesting.
And see, again, you're also competing with production guys versus somewhat of artisans. And so people that are craftsmen, and that was the thing about the plasterers. Yeah. The plasters and the guys that you could do plaster work were really consider themselves more of a craftsman than a pure mechanic. But drywall is taking all the craft out of it because it's a mechanical.
But careful now, Buck, because those drywall guys, they are proud of what they do. And being a drywall guy and the finish work, now I'll say this, I created a specialty wall finish system. I also do drywall. It's no more difficult, and even I would say less difficult than learning the skill of drywall. Now you've got these guys with all this skill that do interior finishes and they look beautiful, but they're not making the money and they're not considered artisans. They're considered commodities. And that's just not true. I'm like, take that skill that you have and go make some money with it by doing a specialty finish.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that. I agree with
but that's what you said is absolutely right. That tends to be the opinion in the construction industry about drywall is that, oh, you guys are way down here, even under paint. And to me, the skill level of finishing proper drywall is way above that of a painter. No shame to painters, but there is a lot of skill that is unappreciated in the drywall world.
You're right about that. But again, in the whole, you got to look at the whole. The whole of it is it's pure commodity mechanical process.
Yep.
The repetition, because they've got it to the point where you take some of the track builders. I mean, it's all production.
Yeah.
How much production can we get? How many feet of drywall can we get up? When they build apartments, like I live in Atlanta area, they build apartments. They're just, how many boards can we get installed by the day, and they sell it by the piece.
Yeah,
paid by the piece to the contractor. So that's just purely run and gun.
Yeah, here's my response to that, and then we can shift. But I love this. I love talking about this stuff. Is like for a long time there, they were doing like laminate countertops, But now you can't get away. I don't care if it is a track house. You can't get away with putting a laminate countertop in a track house. It's got to be granite. And there was a long time there, they were doing cheap countertops. And at some point they switched over to granite. And that's all I'm saying. Like, once you could come in with a proper price point and a time schedule that works, a Pulte or a large home building company could start doing a special wall house, and they could pump them out if it's the right product and if the speed's there.
But the reason they were able to do that is they learned how to cut marble. And so they're using CNC machines and things like that.
Yep.
put the marble and the granite and so forth. Whereas before the Formica, it was just, a saw could cut it.
Okay.
So the technology evolved to where you didn't have to go have somebody cut it in Europe and bring it over here. Guy down the street can fabricate it now. He can cut the stone for you to fit whatever. And so that opened up that whole market.
Yeah. Yeah. Still probably doubled the expense on countertops, I would say, just the material alone.
Yeah, it did. But they cut the price out of the drywall. That's what they did.
What's that?
They cut the price out of the drywall.
They always cut the price out of the drywall. The drywall
so they could pay for the granite countertop.
And the beautiful front door. So now you've got a surface that consumes about 0.5% of the house versus 80% of the visual space. You're going to take money out of the 80% of the visual space in a home and insert it into a very limited amount of space for a very small aesthetic benefit. Right. I'm saying spend a little extra on a large aesthetic benefit. Keep the granite. Who cares? Spend 15% more and have walls that you don't shudder every time you go in to your home, your new home. Because the heavy skip trowel on the ceiling is so atrocious, you can't bear to look at it. Yeah, it's awful. It's awful. I mean, and I would rather have level 5 or plaster, any kind of plaster than, ugly skip trowel or orange peel. It's just, I think it's a placeholder. Texture is a placeholder until something better comes along.
I think you're right. I think you're exactly right. I mean, before you did the texture, they had the popcorn ceilings, and those were.
Oh yeah. We're covering one right now. My guy is covering a popcorn ceiling right now. So shout out to all those people that installed popcorn ceilings for the years that it was popular, because it's keeping a lot of us drywallers in business, taking it back down and restoring it to a more beautiful finish.
Okay.
I love it. So this is good stuff, and I love that. I love your knowledge about sort of these the nooks and crannies of this industry that are just like a mystery to me. It's like, why are they still doing texture? And it's like, well, there's a reason. There's a reason for that. So you wrote a business book, but you and then you tour and you do like you've spoken in front of people.
Yeah.
And you also do business consulting. And so are you still currently president of Buchanan Business Consulting?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a business that you have.
Yeah.
And you consult with other business owners on what?
Well, it's kind of a variety of things. It's just, I still do some work for the trade association for EIFS, which is called EMA. I still do some stuff from them from time to time. And then I work for business owners. I've got a client right now that's going through the sale of his business. So he never sold a business before. And I actually was involved in a lot of that during my career of buying businesses. So I've helped him with that and understand what he's doing with there. I've helped several people as they go through a transitional phase of their company. So the father wants to retire, turn the business over to the kids.
Okay.
How do you do that? And then some business strategy stuff like, okay, what do we want to do? How are we going to get from point A to point B? How do we build a business plan? How do we develop a strategy? I do some of that. And then I also do some coaching.
Okay.
Coaching where I basically mentor someone that's a president, CEO, manager of an outfit. I give them somebody to talk to. So, for example, you got a problem, and who are you going to turn to? Well, I'm going to go talk to my wife tonight when I get home, and she wants to listen to what the hell I got to say. So I offer that as a place where people can we can talk about it. Okay, here's what came up. What do you think? I just through things. So it's just part of what I do, and I really kind of do it as I'll get a call. Can you help me with that? And I'll say, yeah, I'll help you with that. So I really don't promote what it is because I stay plenty busy doing what I'm doing as is now. I'm writing another book, so
Nice.
so that's coming, and then the consulting stuff happens, and the book tours and signing events that keeps me pretty busy, and so and also the president of the local Rotary Club. So I got a lot of stuff in the pipeline right now.
What is that? I don't know anything about the Rotary Club.
Well, the Rotary Club is a service organization, and it's an international group. So there's the Rotary Club in Albuquerque. I'm assure you of that.
They've been around. I've heard of it. I just don't know what it is. What's the purpose?
But what they do is they work with in the community to help people that are in need. So, for example, our club here last night we have a place here where recovering drug people, they're going through a program. They stay in this building, and we provide a meal to them once a month. There's 7 people in that, guys in there, and we provide a meal. We go in and serve it to them, and you just see somebody different and talk to some different people.
Yeah,
we do that with the women. We help several schools where they have problems with some of the kids that they need help, that need assistance. We provide books in some cases. We provide some tutoring in some cases. We help veterans. There's a lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of needy veterans that they're on hard times, and so we work with them and help them get clothes and help them find places to go. So we do a lot of veterans programs too. So it's just things in the community that help that community move forward.
Okay.
And Rotary does it at the local level. So your Albuquerque club there or our club here, it's going to really work within the community. And then they also get involved in other programs throughout the state. So, for example, if there's a disaster, like when Katrina hit, the Rotary clubs pitched in big. Last year, there were the storms that hit up in Western Kentucky. And several of our members went up to help them, and some of the rest of us made contributions to them there. And then we did global projects where it may be to purify water in South America, or it may be to help planting people in Africa, or it could be for a reading program in the Caribbean. So just anything you can imagine to help people, that's what the Rotary Club's about. Service of self is the motto. So it's a fellowship group, it's a community group that you get people of like mind, and you move forward with it.
Service of self. Service of self.
Service above self is the motto for the Rotary Club. So between that, Rotary Club, church, business consultant, grandkids, little travel with my wife, and play golf a couple days a week. How much time do anything else? And sell a book here or there, So
I played golf yesterday.
Okay.
Don't tell anyone.
Right.
I snuck away. I missed 2 appointments that I had on my schedule, which I never do. One of them being a dentist appointment. Like I have to just to get around to 18, and I'm not. I love to golf, but it's such a pain. I'm like inundated with stuff constantly, and I love what I do, but sometimes you got to just go play a round of 18.
You gotta have time for golf. So my wife told, we had 3 kids, so she told me, said, "You're not playing golf until the kids are all through with stuff."
Oh wow!
And so I had one of my sons play college baseball, so I didn't play golf till he got through playing college baseball. So anyway,
yeah, I'm coaching my son's team. We have our first practice tonight. They're 6. You can imagine. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I love that kind of stuff. I mean, that's service work as well. I love that. That aspect of community. Deacon, Chattanooga. We talked business. Where should we go from here?
Well, I want to just, since you're interested in writing books, and
sure,
I tell people this when I talk about book writing, and it's amazing. A lot of people say, "Well, I want to write a book." Well, if you're going to write a book, the way you do it is decide you're going to write a book and then do it, and then do a little bit every day.
Yeah.
write a paragraph or write a sentence or write 2 chapters, you got to stick with it, because otherwise you'll never get finished.
Yeah, because you glazed over that part of your story. You were like, well, I decided to write a book, and then I had the manuscript done. And I was going to say, well, how did did you have a time? And this comes up, and I've listened to other authors talk about how they write. It's come up in other conversations of like, you choose a time during the day, or maybe in the morning where you write, or every Monday I'm going to write a chapter or whatever. But yes, I've written long lengths of material, but it fizzles out. I haven't had the stick-to-itiveness, and also the topic, that I think that's also crucial. The topic needs to be really solid.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, but again, the other thing is this: is I've got a sister, and she's an English major. She never wrote a book till 3 years ago. She finally figured out that her little brother was an English major, had written 3 books, and she better get on the stick. But she just writes short books that are of her interest level. And the point of this is, to me, writing is about telling stories. And I think it's important for us that have stories to tell is to write about it, because it has to do with history. And the 3 books that I've written have history threads through all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And because number one is we need to preserve history, although unfortunately some people don't want us to in this country. Mm-hmm. But preserving history is important because you learn from history.
Yeah.
Learn from what happened. And you go back, and if you read First and 30, a lot of
I will read it.
you'll read in that, you're going like, well, hell, we're doing some of that right now.
Yeah.
Years later. We haven't learned anything.
Yeah, history repeats itself.
And it does. And I think people need to preserve it. I talked to a veterans group a couple of weeks ago, and I told them, I said, you guys got stories to tell that need to be told. And because you need to preserve that history, because you lived through it. And I encourage people to do it. I was with a guy, we were on vacation. I ran into this guy, and he was actually born, his father was born in Germany and survived. He was 12 years old at the end of World War II. Well, his story was how his father survived just living, because the daddy had been killed in the war. The mom and 3 kids were trying to survive in the war-torn area of Germany, and how that happened, and how his father came over to North America, and how this guy actually went to the Naval Academy and became a commander in the Navy. That's the kind of stories that you want to hear, because that's telling history about that people don't realize. And also tells about what this country's about, and it's really about providing opportunities. For people come in here and do in work, there's opportunities for them.
Very inspiring.
Stories.
I've written a couple of blog posts about the history of fresco harmony, like sort of how it came to be. A lot of people ask, where did you come up with this? And it's long. I'm always the same way. It's like, well, it's a long story. I didn't just start putting color into a bottle.
And I think that's it. I mean, it's kind of like what you're trying to do, and you're a pioneer in a tough world. So and I think what you've got to do is just continue to move forward. You got to get your disciple base built up.
Yeah,
people believe, and they say, "Man, I got to have Nick stuff, man." It's time, and then you get some builders that there, and then you get an interior designer, and you do a Marriott, and then you do housing, and then you do apartment complex, and Kirky, and then you go to El Paso, and then you go to Las Cruces, and then you go to Dallas and San Antonio and so forth. That's the way it works.
It's true, especially in this industry. I'll have to call you and take you up on some of that business consulting.
At very reasonable rates.
Okay, good. Joe was talking about Joe Koenig was talking about my necessity to join the AWCI. Like he's like, you need to do that. It's expensive, but for me, but like, those are marketing dollars. I think that would probably be well spent.
And here's a tidbit for you. So one of the reasons that the EIFS industry got off the ground was that they joined AWCI.
Right.
And the reason they joined AWCI is it had those plasters that were converting into drywall.
Yeah.
Perfect time to go find the people that wanted the business.
Yeah.
Today, drywall guys, the big drywall guys, not the local guys, but the nationwide regional guys, big guys, are in the drywall business. And it would give you the opportunity to network and get to know people. And the more people get to know you, they're going to say, well, I'm going to try that stuff. He's a good guy, and I believe in what he says. Let's give that a try. Let's go find it. And that's how you do it. So you got to build your base. So it worked for the EIFS business. I can tell you that. So it ought to work for your business because it's.
Yeah.
I mean, drywall's a big part of that industry today.
Yeah, it's huge.
It also lets you learn too some things that you don't know. You'll see other products or other techniques, but you make connections. That's the big benefit I think you can see in that. Several committees that are related to the drywall finishing trades. And it costs you some money and so forth, but if you stick with it, you'll build some relationships, and you build relationships, you're going to build your business because people still want to buy from people.
Love it. That's and that's strategic dollars too. That's so much more valuable than an ad in a local. It's just so much more broad. It's a good use of resources. This podcast has been fantastic for that. It's opened up my mind to, I'm talking to you, and I'm also talking to drywallers from, all over the country. And Drywall Shorty is going to be, Lydia Crowder from Bozeman, Montana is going to be on the next podcast. And all of these and other guys that are coming up with new tools and ideas. And we're kind of in the same boat, and they're sharing distributors that I should talk to. And it's so neat. It's just what it does is it's humbling. Yeah.
That's part of it, Nick. Is you're building your network, you're establishing connections, and that's really what's important. Is again, the more people you can associate with that know about you, they're going to spread the gospel of what you got to sell.
Yep.
Because you're doing something that, frankly, a lot of people have thought about.
Yep.
Nobody's been able to really execute it. It's not uncommon. There was, we bought a company called La Habra Stucco and El Rey Stucco, which is right there in Albuquerque.
Mm-hmm.
And their primary business was finished stucco.
Mm-hmm.
Most part of the world, there's still a lot of cement finished stucco that's used outside. And the big sellers were color packs. And the color pack worked just like your bottle. You take a 94-pound bag of stucco and you add the color pack, which is 8 or 9 ounces.
Yep.
And that's what you do. So you didn't have to have 30 different pounds. You had 30 different little boxes of 8 or 9 ounces.
Yep.
And it worked there. And we also did it really successfully with acrylic finishes, where our big deal was to go through distribution and get, instead of selling color, which is made in the plant, we'd sell them white bases, and then they would either use their own tinting machines, or a lot of them would fill up tint vials into the bucket. So you're on to something that's proven and it works.
Yeah.
But it's really never been done successfully in the drywall business.
It's so weird. And here another fun fact is ready mix joint compound mixes perfect.
Yeah.
Like just as good as paint. It's all weighed out. It's like the color from batch to batch is perfect. Crazy.
Yeah, I think it worked. But again, what you're doing is you're changing the paradigm, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
You don't, if you could ever convince USG or National Gypsum to partner with you, grand slam. But you and I ought to talk offline. I'll have another idea for you that I'll give you free of charge. So.
Yeah, we will. We will. This has been an absolute pleasure. And what the hell, right? I'm gonna read your book. So we'll be in touch, whether or not it's sending you excerpts from the book for you to edit and critique. Just fun fact, everybody, I'm going to actually narrate First and 30 for Buck Buchanan, and that's going to be available in audiobook, and you're going to hear yours truly reading flawlessly the entire thing.
Well, the more you do it, the better you get too. So, you do the audio part. You got to say, well, I'm living the dream here. I'm in the moment, and I got to pretend I'm there. That's what you got to do. So, well,
and also am I going to make $1 million from it? It's kind of one of those things that you do stuff kind of, the money's like secondary. That's always been, that's been a staple for me. I do stuff for the enjoyment. Yes, I want to make money. I'm not an idiot, but do what you love and make that sort of a priority. If you want to do something, go after it. Yeah. I ask everybody that's been on the show if you could bestow a pearl of wisdom to the drywall exterior community on a global, national, and local level. What would it be, Buck? What would you tell them?
Well, I think that you have an industry that you need to take care of. There's a lot of benefits to it. It's an opportunity to make a great career and living out of it, but you got to do it right. You got to do it well, and you can't cut corners. So, let's try to continue to bring the craftsman back to construction. And some of that's been lost because, it's cheaper to do it another way. But it's a craftsman product. It's something to be proud of. And there's a tremendous opportunity to make a living in the field. And some of these people think, well, I've got to go to college. Well, you go to trade school and learn how to do some of this. Tradesmen are in big need, and you can develop a career and be a great craftsman and establish a lot of pride in yourself. So let's put pride back in construction.
I like it. That was a beautiful answer. Buck Buchanan, author, grandfather, father, deacon, business consultant, and pretty much great guy as far as I'm concerned. Thank you for being on the Drywall Podcast today. This show, 17, I don't know, something like that. But this is also going to be on the local cast and the Drywall Podcast. You can hear Behind the Walls, an hour of that book on the local cast. Currently, you don't get the whole book. You got to buy that on Amazon, but all of his stuff is available on Amazon and also booksbybuck.com. So thank you for being with us today. And we'll see you down the path.
Nick, thanks a lot. Enjoyed it. Always great talking to you. So look forward to talking to you again, my friend.
All right, sir. You have a good day. We'll talk soon.
All right. See you.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Special thanks to Buck Buchanan for being on the Drywall Podcast today. If you have questions or comments about the Drywall Podcast, you can contact me directly at info@frescoharmony.com. And be sure to like our Facebook and Instagram pages and catch us on the local cast. This podcast is brought to you by Fresco Harmony. Fresco Harmony is the world's first color joint compound system to create beautiful walls, whether you're going over existing painted texture or level 3 finished drywall.
This is my new least favorite place I've ever been. I spent a lot of time here, but trust me, it doesn't get any better.
Thank you for joining the Drywall Podcast today. We certainly appreciate it. Join us every Friday for new characters and topics specifically about drywall. Until next time, keep drywalling.